And welcome to another commentary. Last week did so well that I decided to do a commentary on these two pieces. I kind of combined them together, mostly because I didn't necessarily want it to really do a commentary on these, but I figured you guys deserve more videos. That's kind of my treat, was like, last week I did 2 Watch Me Draws in 1 week because the first one did so well. I wanted to treat you guys to a second one. Sorry they're both for YoMama, and sorry they were both funded by YoMama, but basically I got paid to do 6 YoMama commissions, and they're all for their Patreon. I'll talk a little bit more Patreon in a little bit. I actually recorded this commentary like 6 times, and each time I kind of went over the actual things. I got into a certain topic that I really want to talk to you guys about, so I extended this a little bit longer. But yeah, so I had to do 6 pieces. They didn't necessarily ask me to do Watch Me Draws, but I kind of recorded the process, asked them if it was cool if I made them into Watch Me Draws, and I figured these would be kind of a buffer, if you will. So like if there's a week where I couldn't do a full-fledged Watch Me Draw or something that I really wanted to do, I had these extra videos ready, lined up, and just, you know, put it into the queue, and boom, you guys still have a video. And because these are commissions, I did put a lot more time into these than I normally get to do with Watch Me Draws. They're pretty solid pieces, so you guys kind of get a win-win. The only thing that sucks is they are YoMama, and they are paid content, and it's not your guys' request. But that's the catch-22. So with this piece, it's pixelated. See, the interesting thing was, when they asked for 6 drawings, they didn't specify what they wanted except for one. There was one where they're like, Brody has to be at a party. That was like playing beer pong. That was the only stipulation. The rest of them, there was like no direction given to him whatsoever. Anything I wanted. The first one I did was Brody being like squashed in, like, it's a frame and it's nothing but like a fat mama's face, and he's just like holding, like trying to stay in frame, but he's being pushed out. They told me not to use the mamas for the rest of them. They've been trying to like rebrand Brody to where he's less of a YoMama character. Well, he is a YoMama character. He doesn't be part of YoMama, but they want to like make him into his own character, make him into his own show. So with this one, you notice at the very beginning I did draw out the sketch full size, so I did 11 by 17, and then I scaled it down to this really small thing, and I switched to the pencil brush. The pencil brush is a really great tool for pixel art. If you move if you change the size down to 1 and use the pencil brush, you basically make pixels, really solid pixels, and that's how a lot of people do pixel art in Photoshop. To scale it up later on, I switched the free transform tool. You can either do it in edit preferences, general, or CS6 now has it at the very top. You can switch your thing, the style from, I think, like bicubic to nearest neighbors, and that preserves pixels. It's pretty solid. You can resize pixel things without it getting blurry, which is pretty sweet. So I decided this one pixel based because I was doing I just started working on Fly Guy when I made this piece, and I have a series or idea of a story I want to tell called Pixels and Bits. So I had pixels on my mind, and I'm a really big fan of sprites. I was part of the Sprites Resource and Pixel Tendo when I was in high school. My avatar name was Silverbolt, which was based off Beast Wars, and yeah, so this is kind of like me. Like, as soon as I get a chance to do pixel stuff, a lot of times I do. So in this one, I made him beating up Donkey Kong because Donkey Kong's kind of, you know, I love retro stuff. You've seen it with the Betty Boop and Felix the Cat piece, that I tend to use retro characters as much as possible. So when I think of old video games, I think of Donkey Kong and Pong, but Pong wouldn't be nearly as interesting, neither would Pac-Man. So I threw Brody beating up and defeating Donkey Kong, winning the girl who's Pauline from Donkey Kong. In the original Donkey Kong, she looked more like Peach, but then when they made Peach, they kind of changed her so they wouldn't be the exact same thing. This is her more updated design, which, in my opinion, I don't mean like slutty in a negative sense, but she's very much more a liberated woman than Peach. I don't know if I guess it's a great design. I don't know. But yeah, so she has a much, shorter skirt, high heels and such, a lot of makeup, very different towards Peach, who's more innocent. And then I also added Mario's hat. I added, I feel like I'm going to get attacked from that one. I didn't mean that in a negative sense, by the way, when I said she's more, like, she's definitely a woman that takes, wants her appearance, dresses for herself. I don't know. I'm going to jump out of this before I get attacked. And then, abort! And then I have Mario's hat and Donkey Kong from Donkey Kong Country's tie. And then Brody is also in the Mario pose, the victory one. So yeah, so that's kind of all the references here. Okay, so I'm going to start talking about the other piece, because there is a subject matter I want to talk about, and I tend to run out of time. Like I said, I've recorded this thing like 6 times now. But the other piece was more about Brody. So I was trying to think, they wanted something epic. I knew they wanted something epic, so I decided to do this piece where it's Brody on a T-Rex, a cyber T-Rex, holding a samurai sword, bazooka in hand, you know, awesome colors, very 80s. And so, like, I think of Brody as very much like an Archer character from FX, where, like, even though they do these things, they're, you know, like, technically Brody's kind of a terrible person. He makes fun of your mother. He's kind of vain. He's a bro, you know. And then with Archer, again, same thing. He's kind of a terrible person, but there is this naive, almost innocent-like quality about them. And it's like this childlikeness whenever they're in a certain situation where, you know, like, Archer will be like in a thing, it's like, this is just like a movie, this is awesome. And I feel like Brody be like, I'm riding on a T-Rex, yeah. I'm starting to get a little, my throat's getting a little hurt because I've been talking like for like 2 hours, I feel like, trying to record these videos. But yeah, so I try to make him as awesome as possible and what he thinks is awesome. And so I feel like this is very much like a wet dream for like any 80s kid. You could see where I tried to draw goggles on him, which is based off Digimon. There's a couple of Digimon references in here, actually. While I think this guy's face looks more like Transmetal 2 Dinobot, which, by the way, 2 Beast Wars references. Go me. But the claw arm and like the little like cyber stuff on his tail is totally stolen from Metal Greymon from Digimon. His face is probably the best thing about this whole thing. Just how goofy and excited he is. Like, it totally captures his attitude towards the situation perfectly. When I get to the coloring, I really like how I did his hair. That was one of those times where, like, I got it. Like, I totally understand how his hair works and how I wanted to shade it. Shading cartoon characters that are normally flat is sometimes really difficult, because not only do you have to get the same style, but you also have to try to bring it into the real world, and that doesn't always translate very well. You guys remember in the other video I talked about how I really hated how I had the thumbs out this time. This sign that I want to do, the horns, the rock-on symbol, the finger is supposed to be inside. I feel like I've seen the thumb out, but that's inaccurate. And then 2 things I had trouble with this piece was getting the perspective and having clean lines with the foot, and having clean lines with the bazooka. I wound up having to use my technique I used in the how to draw stuff, like basics Kirby tutorial, where like I just make a new layer, take the marquee tool, draw the ellipse that's very similar to what I want, fill in the ellipse with white, switch the layer to multiply, and then add a stroke blending option, and that basically makes it outline. The multiply makes the white see-through, that like it makes it transparent, and then all you can see is the outline from the drawing itself. And then I flatten it and then delete the white spots, and now you just have this outline, which is perfect. It's a perfect circle. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, so this piece was basically trying to make Brody feel like he's having, you know, like what would Brody think was awesome. I really like the coloring on this one. I know we're not quite there yet, but like I said, I want to talk about a couple of things, and I tend to run out of time. So I'm just kind of like, in my mind, I have like a list of all the things I want to cover, and then I'm trying to get to it. As you can see here, this is where I start messing up with the foot. I redraw it a couple of times. In fact, the bazooka, when I showed them the sketches, or not sketches, but like a work in progress of what I had, that was the first note they said, was change the bazooka, the lines aren't good enough. It's like, oh, okay, that's fair, that's fair. So, like I mentioned, this is for their Patreon. I think these might be wallpapers, or they might be posters. I'm not really sure what they are. I just know that they're high-res enough to be both. So, speaking of Patreons, I do have a Patreon personally. I haven't made a commercial for it yet, mostly because if I'm going to spend the time making a commercial, because I don't want to do the thing where I just stand in front of a camera and talk about it. I'm not really a camera guy. I'm a larger male, you know, so I'm facing I'm fat, and, you know. The last time I showed my face on here, I got like 15 comments of, you're fat. I'm just like, duh. You think you're informing me? I'm already aware. I've seen the mirror. Anyways, so I just don't really want that. But yeah, so I don't want to film that, and if I'm going to do it, I would have to animate it, and that takes time, and I feel like you guys much prefer me to do a watch me draw or actual animation over me animating a commercial for you guys to, e-begging, basically. I've never been a big fan of asking fans for money, especially if it's a YouTuber that already has enough views to sustain themselves as a full-time job, but then they have the Patreon on top of it, and they're making 3 times as much as they need to live off of. I mean, I guess that's great and all, but I've never been the type that necessarily need a crap ton of money. My definition of being successful is me being able to make the money that I need to live comfortably. And that doesn't mean like buying a bunch of extra stuff, maybe occasionally buying a game or something, but for the most part, as long as I know my bills are being taken care of and I have enough to where I don't have to worry about money, that's when I'm being successful. And something I want to talk to you guys about is I'm not being successful right now. This is really tough. A couple of the reasons why I had to I didn't use the take was I get a little emotional talking about this, but I think after 3 times I think it's become normal almost talking about it. But when you have a following, even though I don't have a big following, I don't want anyone to be like, Steven's such an ego, he has a huge following, but I don't. I have a 56, 57, 58, something like that, 1,000 subscribers, which in all means is modest. I mean, in compared to people that have 3 million and stuff, I'm nothing. But I do appreciate every single one of you guys. Let's make that clear. I'm not saying that just because I don't have 3 million that my fans aren't worth anything. You guys are. I think it's. Try not to use the word fan. I think I was originally going to try to call you guys Rayquesters because it was a pun on request, StevRay, and just kind of meshed together. I don't know why I haven't really caught on. Mostly because I think I kind of want to move on from watch me draws eventually, and I want to do animations. It just whenever the channel is able to sustain itself. I just don't think it ever will be able to. Is the problem. But anyways, the reason why I haven't posted many videos this year is because, well, I'm in a very bad financial spot. I currently make less money than my bills are. And that's not, the weird part about the Patreon video, half the reason why I made a Patreon video is trying to word that in a way that doesn't make me sound like I'm trying to make myself look desperate, because that's the opposite. I know some of you guys look up to me, I know some of my students watch these channels, and talking about this particular thing is really tough because, well, when you have a following and you have people looking up to you, you get this feeling that you have to not show your vulnerability. You want to make yourself seem like you're someone they should look up because they look up to you. You want to fill that role. I never really thought of myself as someone should look up to. And once that started happening, I'm like, well, I obviously have to be that person they look up to, and that's really tough to do sometimes because sometimes you when you are vulnerable and hurting, you want to be able to relay that, and it basically having a following makes social media impossible to do that with. I feel like I can't post anything on Twitter that shows me angry or shows me upset because that's showing a weakness to you guys, and you guys deserve someone strong. And so financially, I'm in a little trouble lately. The big problem was I went to a really expensive school. I went to a for-profit college. All schools are basically for-profit, but there's a difference between state schools and for-profit. And I went to a very expensive one. I was a dumb kid. I didn't really do enough research on the school itself. I thought it was a 2D animation school because that's what the admissions people led me to believe. And by the time I got to the actual animation courses, which was about a year, I found out, no, that was not the case. It was not. It was a 3D animation school. And after so much money I was spent on the school, because I didn't understand. I thought all schools were going to be expensive. I was ignorant to the whole situation. I'm now a teacher at a college, so I'm a little bit more aware of things. And I didn't know the difference between private loans and federal loans and unsubsidized. And if you get anything from this video is be smart about what you do. Don't necessarily choose the most expensive school. Make sure you look at all the schools, all your options. Know there's things like digital tutors and other things. There's different options. Most places require a college degree, but when it comes to the art, if you want to be an artist and you want to be a visual artist or anything like that, as long as you graduated from college or from high school and you have decent enough artwork, people will look over it. Now, I'm not saying don't go to college. Definitely go to a college, but be very smart about it. If I was able to do it again, I would go to a cheap college and pay for digital tutors, because I feel like that's because you get to work at your own pace, and it's just a smarter option for me. Or there's other options besides digital tutors, but there's so many resources online that going to a trade school is really difficult. And I'm very scared to say certain things because I do work at a trade school, and I don't think they actually watch my videos enough to be like, ooh, Steven's saying bad stuff. But yeah, I went to a very expensive school, and it's really hard for me to say this out loud, but like I pay $1,400 a month on student loans. $1,400. That's $1,400 is just my student loan payment. That is more than a mortgage. That's more than paying for a house. And the thing about this, and the reason why I'm bringing it up to you guys, again, really tough to talk about because I don't want you guys to think I'm lame or something, but some of you guys have mentioned, why don't I work for a studio? And the student loan's kind of the biggest thing. $1,400 is a lot of money. Maybe not to everyone, but for me, it's a lot of money. It's 3/4 of what I normally make a month. Some months I make a little bit more, some months I make a little bit less, depending on freelance. But for the most part, that's, and on top of that, that's 3/4, and then the other fourth is rent, electricity, food. I'm barely having anything to survive off of. And this year, it's been relatively tough because I used to have bubble money. And that was extra money in my bank account that kind of paid what I didn't make. It was there and now it's gone. And so each month it's a little tricky to figure out whether or not I'm going to, be able to pay rent or if I'm going to make my loan payment. And I'm definitely starting to lose, I'm running out of deferments, which is where they hold your loan for a bit. So you basically have to pay next month and just interest adds to it. I'm mostly private loans, so there's a lot of student debt forgiveness acts that won't help me because it's not federal. And so it's just been really tricky because you'll go to somewhere you call these places like, oh, okay, we'll help you out. You have a lot of debt. Let's do this. And it's, oh, you're private. Well, you're shit out of luck. Sorry. But just be careful where you go. Be careful what loans you take. Be smart. Do your research. But yeah, this has been a really tough year for me. And what does that mean? Why, Steven? Why does that take out the videos? And so I've been doing a lot more freelance work than normal, and that usually means less time for YouTube. YouTube doesn't pay me very well. In fact, it's very rare that I make more than $100 off YouTube ads, and so per month, by the way. And so compared to the $1,400, that's nothing, and so YouTube gets kind of put on the back burner. Because I have to do freelance to make ends meet. And so I'm trying to use the Patreon as somewhat of a way to level it out. But again, the problem with the Patreon for me is that that's not your guys' problem. That's mine. And that's not fair to try to push that onto you guys. And so basically, if you want to support me with the Patreon, go for it. If you can't, you're young, you don't have disposable income, share my videos, like them, commenting just does a world of good. I get an email every time someone comments. I like reading every single comment. I like to respond to comments. Comments makes me feel there's a community. I really, really like that. I appreciate that a lot. And I've went over. It's in the black. I'm going to Yuri the Wind the crap out of this one. But yeah, so that's the thing. Just be careful when you go to college. I know that in high school you get drilled into the idea that you have to go to college immediately. But take your time, do research, figure out the schools, what you want. Call them, call the teachers. Talk to them. They'll be truthful with you. Most teachers care for the most part. And but yeah, so that's this commentary. This was supposed to be a reward, and I think I ruined it. I think I messed up. At least there wasn't a jump scare. If you guys want, feel free to talk to me down in the comments below. Tell me what you want to see next week with actual Watch Me Draw, and then eventually a commentary. I don't know how to end this. So I'm going to hit stop. Yeah.